Hi everyone, I am delighted to welcome Charmaine White as my guest on episode 9 of my Aspects of Design series. Now, Charmaine graduated from KLC School of Design, and after that she joined a high-end design studio in London, working on luxury spaces. Then in 2012 she launched her own studio, The White House Interiors, and she designs properties in London and throughout the home counties. Now, not only does Charmaine have a diploma in interior design, she also has a degree in textile furnishing, design and manufacture. So Charmaine's style came to sort of public attention and recognition on British television, no less, when she reached the quarterfinals of the BBC programme The Great Interior Design Challenge. And she was also one of 4 feature room set designers at Grand Designs Live. So Charmaine's company, The White House, also offers a collection of furniture and accessories. They're handpicked from local makers and they're available to buy online on her website. Welcome, Charmaine. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure, absolute pleasure. Now, what I want to know, first question, is your journey into interior design, because I think everyone's journey is different and it's always fascinating. So you come from a creative family with a background in design and build, is that right?
I do, yes. So my grandfather was a builder, um, and I used to love spending summer holidays and half terms at my grandparents' house because something was always being built. You know, there was wood everywhere, cement on the driveway. You know that he was
Playhouses.
yeah, it was absolutely amazing. So yeah, my granddad was a builder. My dad is in the construction industry at the moment. So it's always kind of been in me, and I've always sort of been around building sites and that sort of thing. So, you know, I sort of had a very early interest
So did
in
you always know you wanted to be an interior designer?
well, it's funny you should say that because I used to sort of get like your weekly gossip magazines, but the page that would interest me the most, Nicola, and I found these the other day when I was clearing out my parents' shed, was the interiors pages. There used to be like one page at the back where they'd have like, you know, some cushions and candles.
But it was always, back in the day, it was always, because stuff was expensive, it was always how you could make stuff. So it was how you
Yeah,
could, jazz up a cushion or how you could add a trim. I remember those, yeah. Love
yes. So,
those.
I used to tear out these pages and keep them in a binder. So I think there was always an interest in interiors for me there, and actually I found oh God, my national record of achievement. I'm sort of showing my age here. I found my national record of achievement, and in my personal statement, I had written that, you know, one day I want to be an interior designer. So
Oh,
how old would I have been? I think 11, 12 at the time.
yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of been ingrained in me growing up, and then, like I said, from as early as high school, I knew that I wanted to be an interior designer. I didn't know what that was or what
Yeah,
that meant.
you want to do something. Yeah, so
Yeah,
so you went off and you did your degree in textiles. So is that because you didn't know that there was such a thing as an interior designer, or you couldn't? So was that sort of, this is kind of the nearest thing that I can do?
well, funny you should say that. I think no, I definitely didn't know because I didn't know anyone in the interior design industry, so I didn't really have a full understanding of what it meant to be an interior designer. I do remember before I chose universities, I went to one campus or one university. I can't remember what it was. I think it was in Kent somewhere, and it was an interior design course. And I remember sort of looking at the syllabus and looking at the things that the students were producing, and it was a little bit more um, technical than I had imagined. And again, my grandmother, she was a seamstress, so she would make us clothes and stuff. I hated it at the time, but now it's like way cool to make your own stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There was always fabric and stuff around her home, and my mum as well. She would sew stuff for us, and so I knew that, you know, I wanted to get into the softer side of interior design, if you will. And when I found my course that I did, the textile design and manufacturing, it was for interiors. So they were doing things, or we did things like weaving, printing, you know, screen printing,
Hmm.
you know, felting, all of those sort of softer things that go into sort of interior design. So yes, that's how I ended up picking my course. And it wasn't until after I finished my degree, I sort of had this degree and I had all of these wonderful physical skills, if you will, doing all of these things, but didn't know how then to apply that to interior design. And that's when I found my diploma course with the KLC.
But can I just ask you, have you found that obviously what you learned and the techniques that you've learned in your degree course, have you found that really useful as an interior designer? It must be, because you understand, what goes into something, how it's made,
Absolutely. I mean, the thing with interior design, it's so multifaceted. I think not a lot of people really understand what goes into sort of being an interior designer, the kind of knowledge that you have to have. And I would definitely say that my degree helped with that, because as you say, in terms of the materials that are used to, make a bespoke chair, for example, not only do I understand the type of material that the chair needs to be covered with, but also that the materials that it's being manufactured with, so the wood and all of that sort of stuff. So it's sort of given me an intrinsic understanding of how you need to specify the
and much more in-depth understanding.
Understanding, yes. So it definitely helped. I didn't know at the time.
Absolutely.
As I've been practicing all of these sort of things, and of course things change all the time, don't they, Nick? All regulations and all of this sort of stuff. So I would never have known about fire retardancy and all of that sort of stuff had I not had the sort of education.
And that's all really kind of, it's really important stuff to know, because there's no point in sort of finding out about it afterwards, after you've had a piece upholstered, and actually it needs to be an FR treatment and all of that sort of stuff, because these things are kind of safety and really important. But listen, so tell me, so then you came across KLC, so this was you deciding to do an interior design course. So tell me about that, and how did you find the course? And what I want to know as well is sort of, knowing what you know now and sort of looking back, what advice would you give to yourself, or what advice would you give to somebody doing the course?
Good question. So how did I stumble across KLC? I honestly don't remember, but I do remember when I was at college, so this was when I was 16, 17, I did a work experience placement, and the design studio that I worked at, what's his name? I can't remember, it will come to me. But the design studio that I worked at, he had a studio which was based in the Chelsea Harbour, in one of the sort of, is it the East Wing or something like that?
Oh, Chelsea, Chelsea Harbour East,
And at the time, Chelsea Harbour was trade only. And I remember I was sort of sent off into the harbour to find all of these beautiful samples and things. And that completely opened up my world as to, the kind of things and places that interior designers sort of work in and source at and all of this sort of stuff. And I believe KLC school was there at the time, but again, I didn't really know about it.
It still is,
so it's been there for some time. And I don't know if I knew about it then, but when I did find the course, there were a few options, and I know it's kind of expanded now, but there are a few options in terms of how you could study. So you could go part-time, full-time, or do a distance learning. So I actually did the distance learning diploma, which meant that that's how we met.
Yes.
So I did the distance learning, which meant that you sort of learned at your own pace. I had this huge binder, I still got it, and I still refer to it to this day, honestly. A huge binder of course materials, and
known as the grey. It's known as the grey binder.
The grey binder, and it kind of had all of the lessons in it. I think it's 20 odd of them, and all the sort of projects, things that you need to complete. And then it was a bit of online as well at the time, and I absolutely loved it. It took me 4 years, I think, to complete. Now, the reason why it took me so long is because at the time I was doing internships and sort of little things, because I kind of didn't want to sort of finish it and then be kind of, okay, what do I do now? I wanted to do the theory and the practical at the same time. So I was working at the same time as, I mean, not fully working in interior
but you were in the environment, you were getting experience, and then and what you were learning you were applying to your work, and then the work you were doing you were applying to your learning. So it's an ideal way of doing it.
Exactly. And I mean, I was working full-time as well, because by this time I wasn't at home. I'd sort of had my own place. I was fortunate enough to move out quite early on. So I had a full-time job. I was doing these sort of part-term type internships and also doing my diploma at home in the evenings and weekends. So it's pretty full on, but I absolutely loved it because I felt like the diploma course was very thorough. And that's what I wanted, sort of after I had this sort of degree, that's what I wanted, was to sort of get to the roots, the nuts and bolts, if you will, of what interior design is. So we learned about history of design, and I've always enjoyed history at school. So learning about the different periods of design history and why certain things, like why we have dado rails and picture rails and all that sort of stuff. It was just so in depth. I absolutely loved it. We learned about construction, so how buildings are made, you know, the type of things that go into making a building, bricks, different types of bricks, and all of these modules, if you will, we kind of had to produce, you know, whether it be a notebook. So there was a curtain notebook, if you remember, Nicola. We had all the different types of curtain heading. I absolutely loved it. It was a very, very thorough course. And, you know, if anybody is looking, and in fact, people have asked me, you know, where did you get your interior design training from? I always defer them to KLC because in terms of the learnings, it's very, very good. I really enjoyed doing the course through them. It was brilliant. I'm just trying to remember what else you asked me, Nick.
It was just, sort of advice, I guess, you know, during that process, knowing what you know now. But I guess, you know, pretty good advice that you had is if anyone is doing an open learning course, is that, you know, which I advise as well, is that if you can, you know, get some work in the industry while you're studying, because you can sort of apply both and you know, it kind of works both ways. But I guess in terms of your you know, and it took you 4 years, but because you were doing that and learning and sort of pacing yourself, because you know, different people have you know, different kind of commitments and different ways they want to do it. But I guess in terms of I don't know, perhaps the studying or the submitting of project, you know, I don't know, what was it, you know, it sort of, you know, don't deliberate too much is what I always say.
No, and I think actually I found the college to be very supportive, and again, that's how we met, wasn't it? Because although I was sort of doing it at a distance, you know, there was never any a time where if I needed support either on the phone or if I needed to come in and just, you know, speak to a tutor about certain things and get some direction, there was never a time that wasn't okay. Part of this learning course is that you get this support, so it was brilliant for that as well. And as I said, I remember coming in a few times with coursework materials just to kind of touch base with the tutor. I remember speaking to people on the phone quite often as well, and the support was amazing. So, you know, in terms of the kind of depth of the sort of learnings that you get, or the teachings from KMC, I found it to be very good. And I would, as I said, anyone wanting to sort of get into interior design or do it to a professional level like that, I always advise that they get an education, because it's not what you see on TV, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, this is what I was going to ask, you know, that was my next question. So, you know, someone is thinking about a career in interior design, and I do think for people who don't do it, it looks incredibly easy, because they go, oh, it's just, you know, you throw a few cushions there and you put a sofa there, and there's no idea of the depth. And I think there's you know, I wouldn't say there's a move towards, but I think, you know, with social media, you know, there's a certain kind of, you know, somebody who's got a really nice eye, really nice style, who can put a few nice pictures together. I mean, of other people's stuff, not necessarily any work that they've done, but they can put some, like, you know, do a nice curate, and then next thing they're, you know, they're an interior designer, you know, and because there is no requirement for a qualification in this country. So, you know, I just want to know what your, you know, what would your advice be if somebody is seriously thinking about wanting to be an interior designer? You know, what would you recommend?
I mean, you're absolutely right, and I do have a little bit of a bugbear with social media in that respect, in that, you know, like you said, someone could curate a beautiful Instagram profile with other people's images and all of a sudden they're an interior designer. I think there's a bit of, it's dangerous is what it is. You know, I'm not disputing that there are people out there with wonderful eyes, but interior sort of decoration is very different to interior design. And the reason why I say it's a little bit dangerous is because if you are going to be working with people in their homes, you know, there's a huge responsibility that comes with that. You know, with someone who's sort of doing interior design on social media and doing all of these DIY things, that's great because, you know, more often than not, it's their own homes and that's fine. But you can't very well go into somebody's home because there are sort of, you know, liabilities and insurances that come with being a professional interior designer. So you have to, in my opinion, have a foundation or, you know, some kind of education if you want to be an interior designer or a professional interior designer in that sense. And actually, as I said, you know, if you want to sort of learn about the nuts and bolts and how to do technical drawing and all of that sort of stuff, then it's great. If you don't, then, you know, go and work for a design studio for a period of time or do an internship so that you can sort of see what goes into it. Because, you know, all of us designers, we say, you know, there's about this much design, so about 20% design, and the rest of it is admin and people management and finance. God, the finance.
I know. And chasing orders, chasing deliveries and orders and chasing and tracking, you know, even, you know, something as simple as, you know, furniture in a living room and 3 pieces of furniture, upholstering those, and then all of the logistics. But, you know, the thing I think as well is that, you know, because I studied at KLC, and it's just that thing of, your, you know, for your own sort of self-validation that you know that you have this, and you know you have the knowledge. Because when I started the course, I thought, oh my God, and I was going to go out there with like no qualifications, and I just realized how little I knew from what there was, and you saying this great, you know, how much there was to learn and how much there was to know. And, you know, I just think, you know, that's a scary thought of somebody going out into the world and managing somebody's project or coordinating and not knowing any of that stuff.
No, it's terrifying to think that this is happening. But, you know, thankfully I'm not in that position. But like I said, anybody who ever asks me, I will tell them my story. I'm not ashamed to sort of say that I think that it's best to have a foundation or, you know, some kind of education. Because, you know, when I think back to when I was sort of doing my course, and I was on one of my earlier internships, you know, one of the first projects that I did was with a designer, and she was converting 2 apartments in a Notting Hill townhouse, and it was right at the beginning of construction. So, you know, there were floorboards up, wires hanging out, all of this sort of stuff, and, you know, builders were there asking me questions about this. And, you know, I just think if I didn't have the education that I had, you know, and although I wasn't solely making the decisions,
No.
Yeah. You know, all of these sorts of things. If you haven't,
but also, I think part of that education and part of going through that process is knowing what you don't have to know. Because I think interior designers, you know, you don't have to be an expert in everything, but you have to know it enough. You have to know a little bit about everything, and you have to know what you don't know. So you sort of say, well, I don't know, I don't, we're going to have to check that with the electrician, or, well, you know, I can estimate quantities for curtains, but I want the curtain maker to come and measure up and tell us and advise that, you know. So it's having the confidence from what you do know, to have the confidence to say what you don't know and what's not going to be your responsibility. So rather than sort of not having a clue and bluffing it and winging it and then, you know, making a decision that really wasn't yours to make. Pardon?
I was just going to say, and the building falling down, which God forbid.
Oh God, don't. Yeah, that's all. I mean, yeah. And it's having insurance and stuff like that.
I mean, it's a terrifying thought. But then, as you said, you know, when you're an interior designer, you are part of a team. So there are electricians and plumbers and all of it. So you're not expected to be an expert in all of those fields, but you need to know a little something so that you can specify the right, you know, sanitary wear and all of this sort of stuff, and then liaise and coordinate and work with those other trades to sort of make a beautiful, you know.
And the logistics of making all of that happen. But anyway, so we've talked about, you know, studying and all that stuff, but, you know, you know, I want to talk about you now and your style. So tell me, how would you describe your interior design style?
Do you know what, I have struggled with this for a long time, and actually it's only really recently that I've been able to kind of sort of hone it down and define it, if you will. Because although I've sort of been working in the interior design industry for nearly 10 years now, I have, when I sort of worked with clients, a lot of the time I'm sort of working to brief. So in terms of my sort of personal style and aesthetic, I've been able to inject it a little bit, but not too much. But now I'm kind of at a stage where I am sort of getting people inquiring to work with me for my aesthetic. And if I were to describe it, you know, it's not as easy as saying, oh, I'm eclectic or contemporary or anything like that. So I've kind of worded it so the sort of 3 adjectives I've come up with are timeless, understated, and glamorous, but with a little bit of nostalgia thrown in there.
Oh. Well, look, I'm gonna try a new thing now, which, it's not a total surprise to you because, we've talked about this, but I'm gonna show some of your images. So I'm gonna show some images from, I think it's one of your most recent projects. So if we could just talk a little bit about those. So I'm gonna, let me see if I can do this. Share screen, where are we? So, let me see if it's, oh, here we go, sorry. Right, here we go. So this image, so can you tell us, can you tell us a little bit about this one? Can we see it?
So this is one of my most recent projects. Yes, I can see it. And it was a lovely family in Hertfordshire who were, well, they sort of lived in their home for 10 years plus, and it was very dated, and quite rightly so. They kind of decorated it 10 or so years ago, and it kind of needed a bit of an uplift. And they had 3 young children, so it was a very busy and quite worn. So we kind of went in, and there wasn't anything to do in terms of construction. It was mostly just FF&E, or decorative, if you will. So this is the hallway in that space. And actually, you'll see there that they've got these lovely sort of mahogany doors that they
they're beautiful.
But these weren't there before. So actually what I did when I kind of went in with the client was, we talked about the sort of decorative things, but that kind of spiraled into them changing the doors, the floors they had sanded back and restained, so they really kind of went to town with the sort of renovation or refurb, if you will.
And have you put a textured wallpaper on the walls?
Yes,
exactly. Really.
So before it was just this bland grey, or maybe even blue, I can't remember, just paint finish. So actually what the client had asked for was a really kind of wow statement when you walked in. So I sort of specified a textured wall covering, which you can't really see too well in this picture, but you can sort of see glimpses of it.
I can see it. It's really, really lovely. So tell me, can you see the living room picture now that I've put up?
Yeah, let me see.
Can you see it? Oh, hang on.
Yeah, no.
Oh, new share. Hang on, I need to do a new share.
Oh, okay.
See?
Very good at this sort of stuff.
Oh, hang on. Right.
So I can see the living room one. Yeah. So this.
Right. Can you see this living room one? Yeah.
Yes, I can. So this image is of their sort of living room, drawing room. They were quite fortunate in that they had a couple of reception rooms, but they wanted this to be sort of more formal and very glam, which was right up my street. A little bit of glamour goes a long way. So we kind of, before, the space was, it's a really long room, and they sort of positioned the furniture, or it was kind of pushed up towards the side, so it kind of became a corridor effect. So I kind of went in and did a bit of spatial planning. So we, because there was a dining table in this space also, and I sort of spatially planned it so that the sofas were facing one another. So it was, you had this sort of more conversational seating area. So you
sort of zoned it, did you?
Yes, so I zoned the spaces where you have your sort of living seating area here, and the dining area is on the other half of the room.
And the colours, I mean, the colours, so, in terms of talking about your style, is this now sort of more your style, because you're talking about timeless, and it's very, it's all about the texture, really, isn't it?
All about texture, and this is probably stemming from my background in textiles. I love fabric. Sometimes when I'm designing a scheme, the fabric is the first place that I'll start. And actually these clients are quite bold in their tastes and colour choices. So one of the rooms that I sort of helped just to furnish really, or get some accessories for, they had this turquoise velvet sofa. So I knew that they weren't afraid of colour. And in another place, I think they had a pink sofa. So it was really fun to be able to kind of explore that with them. But I know that this room, they wanted to be kind of timeless. So hence why we've gone for another velvet here, but we've gone for this beautiful sage colour, and these sofas were bespoke made by Robert Langford. And I kind of told them to go to the showroom. I call it the bum test. So they absolutely,
that's a good one. But absolutely, always go, because we all have different needs. We're all different heights, different, our physiques are different, and what's comfortable for one person isn't comfortable for another.
for another person, right? So I sort of recommended one of his sofas, and they went and tried it out, absolutely loved it, and we had this turned around in, well, it was kind of within lockdown. So again, we were kind of working with these restrictions as well, but they still managed to do it within the sort of 6 to 8 week lead time. As I said, I've got some, so the sort of the chair you can see in the corner there, that was an off-the-shelf piece. That's an iShalt sofa.
Lovely, yeah.
We've gone for like really textured fabrics. I love to mix metals, so we've got a bit of brass in there. There's a bit of marble, coral. The curtains, they were done by Hillary's, because again, with working with an interior designer, you know, we can kind of help clients to sort of know where to allocate the budget. And actually, because these weren't going to be curtains that were going to be drawn, you know, every day or anything like that, rather than doing the full handmade bespoke curtains, we used Hillary's, because they do have a really nice range of curtain fabrics, and we kind of were able to sort of pick something that went with all the other fabrics that we were using within the space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved this project. It was a
So
really,
look,
really
I've got one more image that I want you to talk about in this project, which I just think is just gorgeous. So, you know, again, I mean, yeah, tell me about this one.
So this is to the dining side of that space. So this is kind of the transitional space between the seating sofa area that you see there and the sort of the dining area with the table and chairs. So again, because it was a transitional space or part of the room, I kind of wanted to create a bit of a wow moment. So, and I love vignettes. So this is well, it's actually a chest of drawers. I have a bit of a bugbear about sideboards, and actually we didn't have the space for a full sideboard because they sort of tend to be, you know, be about 1200 wide and even wider.
Yeah, it's a really nice idea that, you know, using that, because it's kind of has the effect, but it's like a kind of a sideboard in kind of miniature.
Yes, so this is actually a chest of drawers, so they can put all their serveware and things in there, which they, you know, they've got crockery and napkins and napkin rings and all that sort of stuff. In this beautifully textured, it's a faux shagreen chest of drawers, and then, as I said, on top of that, I've created this lovely vignette with.
And I love this face here.
Isn't he cool?
Oh my god! It's because you don't see it straight away. It's
and then it kind of just sort of jumps
out at you. Yeah, I love it.
So, you know, using books and you know, scents and that kind of thing, just created a lovely vignette with this lovely textured artwork. Above that, and as I said, that's kind of the transition between those two areas, and it sort of creates a really wow moment, and I know that the client absolutely loves it.
Oh my god, I'm sure they did.
I wasn't too sure about the chest, but it all works. And again, you know, when you're kind of looking at interior design or scheming, you know, I'm all about texture and, you know, mixing things and just putting unexpected combinations of materials.
But there's a nice level of detail in there as well, you know, on the handles of this, you know, sideboard, and just the kind of framing, and, you know, the details on the sort of sculptural pieces, like the mirror in the first one and the stool. It's just, yeah, it's really lovely, really lovely. Right, we're going to move on now. So we're back to, here we are, back to you and me. So I just want to, because there's loads of stuff I've got to ask you, and we've sort of gone off on a bit of a tangent here, which is great, which is what it's all about. But where do you get your inspiration from?
Good question. I do you know what? Everywhere. I know that sounds really cliche, but I am inspired by so many things, and I don't have a particular era that I'm kind of akin to or a slave to, if you will. And I know that there are some designers out there who are kind of known for a particular thing, whether that be mid-century or whatever it might be. But I'm inspired by so many different things. I don't want to pigeonhole myself. As I said earlier on, I love history. So I've always loved, when I was at school, and even now, like visiting National Trust properties and seeing, you know, furniture and tapestries, let's say, that have been hung in spaces for like over hundreds of years. And I just find that so inspiring. And part of that for me, that the kind of timelessness of it, obviously you can see that it was the sort of decorated these spaces hundreds of years ago, but the fact that these pieces have stood the test of time, that's what I'm all about in terms of how I like to decorate. I don't think that you should be able to look at a picture of a finished space and be able to see when it was designed. And
So
that's
you're not into trends, you're into it's well, this goes back to your sort of timeless thing. You want to be able to go back and it's still stylish and classy and graceful, you know, in 10 years time or 5 years time or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's kind of, you know, this whole thing we've had with grey for the past 5 or 6 years now, you know, I kind of, when people sort of come to me and say, oh, yeah, I want something that's grey, and I'm like, well, can we kind of just take it a different direction? Because, you know, I find that with trends, they are just that. It's like with fashion, you know, leopard print comes in and out of fashion every few years, doesn't it? And it's the same now with interiors. And again, interiors trends or fashions are moving so much quicker now than they were, you know, back in the day.
Yeah.
But no, I'm kind of inspired by lots of different things. History being the main, you know, I sort of like in interiors sometimes to sort of see a modern take on something, or, you know, a modern interior with, you know, granny's antique side table or something thrown in, you know. I just think it's lovely when you can kind of put a bit of nostalgia into something rather than everything being brand new and matchy.
And it personalizes it, doesn't it? It makes that space unique for us. So tell me about, so just kind of, you know, a sort of a snapshot, you know, about, just give me a brief kind of overview about the kind of projects that you work on, and, you know, are they mainly residential? Are they all residential? You know, and I know that you do work in London and the home counties now. So for people, you know, for our international viewers who are looking at this, who, you know, don't live in the UK, just give us a little, just explain what the home counties is so they know.
Yes.
And so home counties, you know, the projects that you work on and some of your current projects.
Sure. So most of my projects are residential projects. I work with homeowners in their homes, you know, sometimes one room, whole homes. I've kind of done everything in between. I have done a couple of residential projects, commercial projects, which I absolutely love, because sometimes with the commercial projects, you can take the brief like to the next level, because they're going to be used by lots of different people. So you kind of have a bit of a wider net, if you will. Or a box to play in, if you will. But yeah, most of my projects are residential, and London and the home counties. So the home counties are sort of like Hertfordshire. Most of my projects sort of tend to be in Hertfordshire. So Greater London going out to sort of.
So they're just outside London. So they're sort of kind of around London.
Greater London, yeah. So like Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire. Those are the sort of home counties that I sort of tend to dabble with. But I'm not restricted to any location, really. If the project is right, if the client is right, if the property is right, then I'll go.
If the fee is right.
The fee is right.
The fee is right. I think that's very important.
Of course. So yeah, if the fee is right, then I am there. So, you know, in terms of location, that's what I do. In terms of projects, that's what I do. And what was your other one, Nicholas?
Oh, it was, just tell me a little bit about some of the current projects that you're working on.
Right, so some of the current projects, right. So again, with COVID and everything, it's, you know, sort of things that I had started or were going to start at the beginning of the year kind of tapered off. But then I'm finding that a lot of inquiries are coming in now, because obviously people have been at home for so long. You know, I'm getting a lot of inquiries for people wanting to sort of do things in their homes because they realised that it needed doing, or they weren't happy with it in the first. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I'm sick of looking at these four walls. I need to do something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm going to be picking up, probably not now before Christmas, but I've been working with a lovely client who's based in North London over the last sort of year or two, where we kind of were redesigning the whole of his ground floor area. We kind of did all of the designs and had finished all of that, the detailed design and everything at the beginning of the year. We're going to be starting work, and then obviously this happened. So hopefully I should be picking back up with him. That's a really fun project. So he's a retired bachelor, very, very funny, very sweet guy. And he kind of wanted to just do something very different. I mean, he bought his house, bless him, 12 or so years ago, and bought it with all the developers' furniture in, has never changed it.
Oh, bless him. Oh, yeah. So,
you know, it's functional, but he wants something. He entertains a lot. So actually we're designing a huge, I say it's huge, it's like a 2-meter round dining table.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, because he has, you know, banquet dinners with up to 12 people. So
oh, that sounds like so much fun. Yeah.
And we're putting texture on the wall, we're putting cover, we're doing, you know, new flooring with an inlaid rug and all of this sort of stuff. So he's kind of really allowed me
open to
opened it up. Yeah,
Yeah, open to your kind of suggestions, and
yes,
which is
because
great.
he said to me, I've no taste, as you can see, so can you do something for me? But again, when I'm sort of doing these things, I'm designing it in a sort of timeless and classic way, nothing too faddy. So all of those little details you'll kind of see, but nothing will date, in the next sort of 5
Yeah, and
years.
it's for him. It's kind of his style. So listen, tell me, I'm going to try and do this screen sharing thing again. So, hang on. I wanted you to tell me about this project. Hang on, let me see if I can do it. I need to close these ones now. Right. So share screen. So tell me about. Can you see this?
Oh yeah. So here. Oh God, do you know what? I love this project and I love this image, but every time I look here, Nicola, I see that awful, I'm probably pointing out and nobody noticed that god awful top right, you can see the
Here.
alarm thing. Oh God.
Oh, listen, I didn't notice it. Nobody would notice.
I know, and it's because I see it, so whenever I see it, I'm like, I hope nobody notices it. Anyway, let's forget about that little bit. But
no, this is beautiful.
One of my favorite projects today, and I tell you now, this client, it looks exactly like that now. So this project, believe it or not, was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
Believe it or not. And
wow.
This is what I'm saying about
timeless again. Timeless.
Yes, and the living room still looks like this even up to now. I still have great contact. I still keep in contact with this client, and she sort of sends me pictures, and she's like, I just love it so much. And literally the accessories and everything are all in the same place. So this was a lovely client. This was her home, her living room in her home. And prior, I mean, if you'd seen the before pictures, she had sofas in there that she'd had from university.
Wow.
So everything was just a little bit shabby, disorganized. She won't mind me saying this. And she kind of, she come into a bit of money and wanted to kind of really make the space feel comfortable and amazing. So this fireplace, actually, it's a biofuel fireplace. This wasn't there before, so that was all blocked up. So we reinstated, and again, I didn't want to put anything traditional in there because the space couldn't have taken it. We wanted it to be modern, so we kind of put in this modern firebox in there, and it was just, I mean,
it works really well. I really like it because it just all fits in with the whole sort of sleek feel of it.
Very sleek, very.
And tell me, I'm going to share another one now. Let me see if I can get this. Is this the same project?
Yes, so that's the other half of the space. So she has this opening that looks into the kitchen, and this is part of the sort of L-shaped sofa that we did that looks onto that fireplace. So the sort of colours and the materials that we've gone for in here were quite muted, with the sort of pop of the sort of navy blue. It's quite soft. She kind of loves entertaining, so we had to make sure that we had a big enough seating, and the planning of this space was important because the way the sofas that she had previously, she had sort of 2 sofas, but they were kind of positioned in a way that didn't make sense, that you could kind of sit and lounge and watch TV. And actually those sort of alcoves that you see there at the side of the fireplace, those were bespoke. So before, she just kind of had some cupboards that she purchased and slotted in, but nothing worked. So we kind of pulled it out. We built in some bespoke fireplace, some bespoke joinery there. So those cupboards have been, what was great for storage. We kind of wanted the TV to kind of float almost, so that was kind of built to sort of sit that. So all your AV equipment and all those ugly things that nobody wants to see are kind of in there. She's got a bit of storage and lovely sort of spaces on the shelves to put books or
no, it's nice. It's really lovely because it's not sort of over cluttered. So I wanted to ask you about another project. Let me see, where did I that you let me see, can I share now? Where am I? Sorry. So share screen, here we go. So this one, I wanted to ask you about this project. Can you see that one?
Yes.
Yeah, so because this is sort of quite different to the other stuff that we've looked at, and it's still got that sort of timeless feel, but it's slightly more traditional. So, this is, I wanted you to tell me about this as well because it's really lovely.
So this was a client who he was an international client, and he purchased this home in Buckinghamshire to be his sort of home away from home when he was traveling and working from the UK. And this was a whole home project. So we did new kitchen, we did three bathrooms, new kitchen, all new everything in this space, new flooring, you name it, we did it, all furniture. So, but absolutely, it is a little bit more traditional because of the setting. And, you know, so that project that you saw before, that was a London sort of conversion apartment, whereas this was, we kind of wanted to mix country with a little bit of tradition. And when I say tradition, I'm talking about my client's heritage. So he was Ghanaian. So you'll see in the background there's a really beautiful, and you can't tell from this image, but that is an embroidered, so those sort of people you see in the image.
This image here.
Yeah. So
yeah, the painting. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And he had these, it's about 4 or 5 of them. And he had these artworks that he wanted to incorporate into the space. So you can see that what I've done here is I've used these artworks and have pulled out some of the colours and the textures.
Yes, I was going to say, you obviously use that as your inspiration because the colours have been, it just works beautifully. But they kind of sit and they let that artwork sing.
Yes, so we kind of kept the colour on the walls very simple. So it's all white walls because what I wanted to do was have the artwork do the talking, and as use some of the textures from that and the colours from that in the interiors, the textiles, so the sofas. And again, because we were kind of taking into consideration where it was in this lovely village in Buckinghamshire, Iver. So it's a lovely village. We kind of wanted to have that English country mixed with a bit of Ghanaian fusion. You know, it was just
But it's worked. Well done. It's really lovely because it does sit, and you know, all the elements kind of work together. Like there's nothing incongruous, so it just sits. So yeah, really lovely. I'm going to stop sharing. Stop sharing now. Pardon?
Sorry, I was just saying he was a great client as well, in that he kind of sort of let me have creative control. Well, not control, because we're not control freaks at all, us interior designers. No, he kind of let me have carte blanche, if you will, and kind of really kind of work the brief, as you saw there, and kind of come up with something fantastic. And again, that project was a few years ago, let's say, but again, you wouldn't know because I want, you know, I always like this sort of timeless element within the interiors.
You don't want them to date. So listen, tell me, I know this is a difficult question to answer, but which part of interior design do you enjoy the most, do you think? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but...
So I have to say, I've got 2. So my first has to be the construction phase. I know some people are like, oh my God, really? But I love it when everything gets ripped out and you can kind of see the bones.
Well, this goes back to you spending that time with your granddad, you know.
Exactly. I love it when everything's ripped out and you kind of see this empty shell, and then you can all of a sudden I can, and as designers we do, you can kind of see what the possibilities are in terms of wall finish and flooring and skirting and coving and all of these sorts of stuff.
So exciting, yeah.
I love that, lighting, everything. I love that part of it, and I love going to building sites and, you know, anyway. And then there's the sort of the scheming. So I love the sort of adding in the textures and the fabrics and the finishes and all of that sort of stuff. I'm a bit of a magpie actually when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'll be, you know, trundling along through a showroom or whatever, and something will just jump at me. And I'll be like, oh my God, that's an amazing wallpaper or fabric. I need to use that somewhere. And, you know, sometimes that could be the starting point. And actually that was a project that I remember, one of my first projects with the KLC course, we had to pick a fabric or something and design a scheme around that, and that was
I remember that. Yeah
it was one of my favorite because I had this really cool, it was a Missoni fabric, and you know Missoni, they're kind of known for their lovely patterns and colors, and I pulled out all of these different textures and things from it, and that's sometimes how I often start a scheme, was with a single.
But that's a good way, and I think that's the point of the exercise, to sort of, this is how you think about how you create a scheme and how you pull all those elements together and in what proportions. And I remember, I used to really like marking that project. It was lovely. So what has been your favorite project to work on so far in your career, do you think?
My favorite, I think, has to be Do you know what? It's not just to do with the sort of finish, it's to do with the person as well, because, you know, it's very personal interior design. You're working with people in their homes. And actually, I think my favourite has to be with the project that you showed there with the fireplace and the alcoves.
Oh, yeah, lovely. The second one.
Yeah, she was such a fun, you know, game up for it client, and we had such a laugh the entire process, you know, and she was very good with kind of allowing the trades to come in and all of that sort of stuff. It was an easy project. So I would say in terms of everything, not just the finish, but the experience, that was probably my favorite to work with. And I've done quite a few, but that's the most memorable one. And I think
it's kind of how it makes you feel, I suppose, as opposed to the work that's gone
really
and whatever.
Yeah.
So listen, one of the things I did want to ask you about is just, you know, there's been a lot of talk recently in our industry about the lack of diversity and lack of opportunities for BAME designers in the interior design industry. So, you know, what are your thoughts on, you know, how can we improve opportunities and ensure there's more visibility to encourage more BAME designers into our industry?
Yeah, I mean, I've had this discussion now for a few months about the kind of lack of diversity within the industry, and it's something that I noticed when I was kind of coming up and learning and studying and doing internships and going to shows and all of this sort of stuff. I was often the only black person there, and I never really sort of understood why, or maybe paid attention to it. And I don't know if that's to do with how I was kind of brought up. So my parents told me that I could do or be anything that I wanted to be. So the fact that I was the only person that looked like me there never really bothered me. I still networked and spoke to people. I've never really had any problem with that. And I have to say that, you know, my experience actually wasn't quite bad. You know, I have spoken to some other sort of black and ethnic minority designers who have had terrible experiences or not been looked at for internships and that sort of stuff because of their name
Or
on
being
the CV,
overlooked or
being overlooked. Right. So I understand that there is a kind of ugly side to it, if you will. I think it's great that the conversation is being opened up, that people are now talking about it or recognizing it, shall I say, and wanting to do something about it. And there have been a number of initiatives that have come about to sort of introduce or sort of, to sort of address the issue. And I think the way that we can sort of combat it, if you will, is visibility, is the sort of the only real answer to that. I think, you know, young people coming up or black and ethnic minority kids coming up are sort of, you know, we're kind of influenced by telly and social media, aren't we? And if you don't see a black designer or editor of a magazine or anything like that, then you're not going to know that this is something that you can aspire to. And I think for a lot of young people today, they kind of need to see that. So this is where the visibility comes in. So, you know, being invited to talk on panels or doing this with you so that they can see things like this and see that there are black designers out there or Asian designers or whatever it might be who are working in the industry. So they can start to think, actually, this is something that I can do. Because if you don't see yourself, you know, in an industry or field or profession, then you're not going to know that it's for you. So, visibility has to be the sort of main thing that we have to combat. So, you know, I sort of challenge our shows like Decorex and all of those sort of things that we sort of do and experience as designers throughout the year to kind of include, you know, inclusivity is another thing, include black and ethnic minority designers so that the younger generation coming up can see that this is something that they can indeed aspire to.
Yeah, people like me. It's that thing of absolutely. You see, you know, people like that, you know, that you can relate to, that you can say, oh, okay, you know, I can, you know, they can do it. How did they do it? Maybe I can ask them and talk to them, and you know, absolutely, and that, as you say, it's on TV and it's in social media and all of those things. So we just need to sort of keep doing it, and you know, and I know you've been on sort of lots of panels, and I was listening to your to the podcast the other day, you and Simon on the Interior Design Business podcast, talking about this very issue. So as you say, it is good that this conversation is happening, but conversation isn't enough. You know, we need to make these changes. So Yeah, good for you. So listen, now I wanted to ask, this is a little bit more frivolous, about the Great Interior Design Challenge. You were on the telly. Now, I asked you to send me some images of, what you'd done on it. So I'm just going to share a screen. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about, and when I saw these images, um, I had to laugh because, let me see. Let me see if I can share it. It's done something funny now. It's not letting me. Um,
Oh, no.
why won't it let me share? Okay, hang on, share screen. Oh, let me try. Because this image, and it was, when I saw this image, I laughed because
I laugh all
it,
the time.
no, only because I remember seeing it on TV. I'd forgotten I'd seen the program.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it and going, that's one of my students. She's one of my students on the TV. Right, let me see if I can. Right. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So this one, can you see?
Yes, yes,
So I
yes.
remember seeing it, and so just tell us a little bit about this and about the whole kind of experience,
Yeah.
because I remember looking at this. I remember at the time and going, "God, that's such a tricky brief," because it was a sort of this kind of room pod, sort of stuck on a roof, wasn't it? So it's glass
Yes.
all the way around. So
Exactly. So this is my first project that I did. So my kind of entry to the show, which I won. This is my first room that I did, and so there were three of us. We all kind of had similar properties. They were kind of on the same street, however, they were all different sizes. This, I think, I had the smallest one, but as you can see, there's no walls, and actually the clients used this as an office. So this was at the top of their sort of beautiful Art Deco home. No walls, just all windows, and the brief was that we use it as an office and we want it to be a place that we can use all the time. And again, with it being all glass, it became like a hot box in a sense.
yeah,
I kind of took the brief and said, right, okay, I'm going to make and design some window treatments. So the pelmet that you can see running across there in that sort of 1950s
here,
sort of mid-century fabric, I
yeah,
made the pelmets to go all the way around the space, upholstered those myself. The blinds I was able to purchase, because they were kind of standard window sizes. That cupboard that you see there painted at the back was a
this one,
very tiny cupboard, a very tiny cupboard for some storage. And that was pretty much it. The carpet was already in situ. I ended up, so the only sort of furnishing that I got to do was the desk and the chair. And actually,
mm,
I remember I found them a really lovely vintage desk, but the client was concerned that it wasn't big enough. So this is kind of like the television world and how it's all very different. They were kind of, once we kind of knew that it wasn't going to be sufficient for him, I had a team or staff, runners, if you will,
yeah,
kind of frantically in the background, because we had 2 days to do this, in the
yeah,
background looking for alternatives. The chair I remember I bought, so that is actually a vintage piece. I bought that off eBay and I kind of painted it and reupholstered the arms on there.
hmm,
But the desk was sort of secondary to the one I had chosen. But as you can see, there's quite a lovely patio outside, and part of what I did for these guys was clean it up. And I think that's why I think Nicola, you probably remember laughing about it, because what I had done was I'd bought this solution to clean the patio and ended up sweeping it all down the drain. And then, and they show this in the episode, all of the dirty water starts streaming down the front of their beautifully, white stuccoed Art
oh,
Deco house. And you just see all this black water,
no,
you
it's
know,
good telly though. Good telly.
it was good telly, exactly. And then, so sort of at the other side of where we're looking from, so there was a little seating area that I designed, and it was just a bench and a pot plant. And another funny moment, this is something I remember, I asked for a big palm plant that I was going to put next to the chair. Anyway, so the runner or whatever it was couldn't find a big palm plant and came back with what I could best describe was a twig in a pot. Never forget it. And I was, she kind of presented it to me, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to lose me the challenge,
Yeah.
Thankfully it didn't.
And what was, and tell me, what was the experience like? Because, obviously, now,
Yeah,
being, a very experienced interior designer, um, it's a very different experience,
oh, it's so
doing something like this, for television, then doing it for real. So how did you find the experience?
it was,
And do you think it helped you with your career? I mean, did it give you sort of visibility?
um, yes. Okay. So I actually found the experience so enjoyable. I mean, I think the difference with sort of TV and how it works in the real world is I didn't meet these clients or present my sort of design schemes to them. I kind of was given a brief, did it all at a distance, and then because this was what made the show, we present the design scheme to them, so their reactions, whether they liked it or not, was very real. Thankfully they liked it, apart from one or two of the items. And as I said, in terms of needing to swap things out and change things out, as you know, Nicola, you can't get things that quickly. It's only because there are a team of people in the background, you know, doing those for you whilst you're kind of busy filming and doing whatever. In terms of visibility, I did get a couple of inquiries off the back of this show, and actually I think it's still shown, you know, in some countries and indeed online. And you know, I've had people contact me and say, oh my god, I've just seen you on this program.
And you're like, oh, I've moved on from that. But it's, you know, but what a great experience. So so the other thing, stop share, sorry, the other thing I wanted to ask you about as well was you did, you know, so you know, you haven't sort of sat around, you've been really busy. So you did a room set for Grand Designs Live as well, which is amazing. So, you know, tell us a little bit about Grand Designs Live, you know, for people who don't know what it is. I mean, people, you know, would possibly know the program, but this is, so tell us a little bit about it. And how did you, you know, I'm going to ask you like 10 questions now and you're not going to remember, but I just want to know, how did you get, you know, to sort of be chosen to do the room set? And, what were my other questions? So was there an overall theme? Because your room set is quite distinctive. It's lovely. I really like it. Was there an overall theme? And I just wanted you to explain your design. But I'll put the pictures up when we talk about your design.
So I actually became involved with the Grand Designs. So Grand Designs, obviously it's a TV show, but every year there are two exhibitions, so one in Birmingham and one in London, and I was chosen, well, this one was for the Birmingham exhibition. It was 2 years ago now, and I came to know about this through KLC. So the beautiful thing with KLC is, you know, once you've kind of done the course and have been through there's still a network. So actually you're
a family.
So
the KLC family.
Yeah, the family. So I actually found out about this through the forum. And it was like, you know, Grand Designs, whatever, maybe it did or didn't mention it, I can't remember, but we were asked to sort of enter a mood board for the brief. And the brief was your kind of dream or ideal space. So I thought, oh my God, this is great. I never get to design a space for just me. I'm always working for other people. Oh my God, now what do I do? And, you know, kind of going back to what I was saying in terms of I'm influenced by so many different things. I remember my mood board. I don't think I shared that with you, Nicola, but my mood board had so many different images on. And actually to somebody who didn't know, they could kind of look at it and think, oh my God, this is a bit of a mishmash, but that's kind of what it's like in my head. You know, I love different things. I think there was...
Well, you did say you're a bit of a magpie, so it's like that. Ooh, yeah.
On there was like a cabriole leg type thing, and then there was a bit of Art Deco and something else, and something very quite streamlined and Chanel looking. And so this was kind of my mood board, and there was kind of a process. So I submitted the mood board. I then had to do something else, which a bit of a write-up, I think. But long story short, there were 6 designers, chosen, and I was one of them. And it turned out that I guess the way that they sort of picked it was that they had different rooms. So there was, someone had done a bedroom, their ideal bedroom, which had a bathtub in it. It was beautiful. She actually went on to win. Someone had done a lounge space. Someone had done a kind of small apartment. Mine was an office. So I designed my ideal or my dream home office. And you know, I remember sort of when I did my mood board, and actually when I was executing the thing, because again, part of the sort of process is that you have to do it all yourself. When I say do it all yourself, I mean build your stand. And it wasn't a small stand, it was like a proper, you know, a good sized room, if you will. You know, we had to sort of look at all of the furniture items. So I remember speaking to so many different retailers about getting sponsorship, and you know, again, I worked with Hillary, so they supplied the window.
Yeah, because you know, Grand Designs Live is a show. Basically, it's a show for interiors. So you've it's an exhibition. So you've got like lots of stands, but obviously they do these room sets to sort of inspire people and stuff. But they, you know, you get invited to a room set, which is, you know, the whole idea is it's sort of exposure for you, and it's fantastic. But they don't give you a budget, so you've got to sort of fund this yourself. So that's why you're going out trying to get sponsorship, because those people will be credited.
Yeah, and it was much like doing a real project. Like you said, no real budget. So some of, I had to spend some of my own money again, because there are other exhibitors there who are selling, interior type projects. So I got to incorporate some of those because it was like advertising for them. So
Hmm.
people can see these inspirational room sets and see how the products work in the space. So I remember I worked with the English paneling company, and they supplied the sort of timber to do my paneling that was around the room. The paint, I worked with Little Green Paint Company, and they supplied the paint. So there was a bit of kind of sponsorship, and as well as a bit of a spending my own sort of buck, if you will. And Tico supplied me the flooring. It was great. It was absolutely great. And I remember sort of when I would put the paint color up, and it also makes sense when you kind of see the images, when I put the paint color up on the wall, because
Well,
we
I'm
had
going to
two
show
days.
now. Let me see if I can share screen. So, oh,
We
hang
had
on.
2 days to build it, and I remember when I was putting the paint color up, I just thought, have I done something wrong here? Because in terms of the brief and what I wanted, it was my, you know, choice. And when a client picks a color, or likes a color for a room, that's fine, because it's
Here we
their.
go. Look, can you?
There we are.
Yeah,
So,
just
uh,
beautiful.
do you know what? I am so happy with how that came out. And actually, if my home office looked like this, I would be so happy. But it doesn't. Either way, do you know what I mean? But this is
Well, that's because it's a real working home office. This is beautiful, and I just think it's such a gorgeously sort of sunny room. It's like it just makes me feel like it's in the Bahamas or something, with those curtains, that you'd have this gorgeous sort of beautiful sea breeze and palm trees outside coming in. It's just got that really lovely warm feel to it. So I'm going to try and see if I can share another image from it. Let's have a look. Um,
So that color, I'll just say, Nicola, that color, when I was putting it on the wall, I kind of thought, oh my God, I've made a mistake. But I knew I loved the color, because when I'd been doing the scheme, at home, it worked, and I knew it worked. But you kind
mhm.
of get a bit nervous, and I remember
Of
thinking, oh my
course,
God,
yeah, yeah.
if
Yeah,
I
just
paint
before, when just the colour's on the wall and nothing else is in there, you're thinking, "Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done?"
exactly.
Right.
But the response I got was amazing. People were like, oh my God, because people wouldn't think of putting yellow on the wall.
Yeah, I know. But the yellow with the white.
With the
Here's
white,
another
exactly.
image. Let's see if I
So
can.
pretty.
The this image here. It's just so lovely, and can
Yeah.
we? Yeah, you can see that one. Can you?
Yes, yes, I can
Yeah,
see that.
yeah, just so lovely, and it's just. I think the yellow with the white just makes it really crisp.
Really crisp. And like
Mm.
you said, you could be anywhere. And that's the kind of, especially now when we've been working from home, when I work from home, I like to sort of burn a candle, and it's almost always a sort of tropical scent, because I like to feel like I'm somewhere warm or sunny or nice while I'm doing that.
Yeah, yeah, it's just evoking that atmosphere. Now, the last picture from Grand Designs, I'm going to show, is just to prove that you were there meeting the celebs.
Oh,
So here we
goodness.
go. This is you with Kevin
Yay!
McLeod, who is the presenter, as we know, of Grand Designs.
You know what? I've watched this program for years, and I was starstruck when I met him. Like, embarrassingly so. We were kind of talking, and he was telling me about his house that he's built where he lives, and all that. And you just kind of, Kevin
Yeah,
McLeod.
yeah.
It was just, he was so lovely, so gracious, and yeah, it was such a brilliant experience. And I'm just sort of looking at all the things there, and again, just going back to kind of being a magpie, and who would have thought to put yellow and sort of like brass together, but
I know,
people are.
it's yeah, it's really lovely, and again, it's kind of timeless. You know what it makes me feel like when I look at it? It makes me think of oh God, I can't remember his name now. The James Bond writer. Oh God, what's his name? I can't remember. It's just gone out of my head. But he lived in, I think, Jamaica or somewhere, and
Okay.
it just makes it feel like that could be his sort of study where he's writing these sort of James Bond books. It just has a really lovely feel to it.
Oh, thank you very much. I loved doing it, and I was flat out exhausted after doing that, but it was one of the best experiences that I sort of had.
Yeah, I've heard that it's just, because we've had sort of other students and grads do it as well, that it's just, you're kind of just at, you've got to work really, really, really. There's just, the pressure is unbelievable, but yeah, it's worth the result. So yeah, well done. Well done. So, I think we're sort of nearly at the end now, because I've just got a couple more questions, and one of them was, you recently became a mum for the second time. Congratulations. Don't know how you do it all, but you know. So it just, you know, have you got, you know, what tips do you have to sort of be, you know, you've got two small girls and you run this very successful business. So, you know, what sort of tips have you got for, you know, anyone who's sort of trying to do it or thinking of doing it?
Do you know what? You know that saying, it takes a village? It really does, you know, because I would not be able to do half of what I do without the support of my family. I mean, my husband is incredibly supportive. You know, my family, I've got a big family. So, you know, even now we're kind of having this meeting and the babies are being looked after by aunties and nanny and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And, you know, my in-laws, that side of family, are fantastic as well. They live near us. So that's literally, that's the secret, is having support. And, you know, I'm quite lucky with what I do. As you'll know, you know, when we kind of can go, when we go to client meetings, for example, we're quite lucky because we work for ourselves that we can maybe take little and because they're going to be in a pushchair and it's fine. And you'll find that some clients love that they've maybe got kids themselves, but they understand, you know, and I'm really fortunate to be able to design my work and my time around my family. So, you know, it's half term now, but I've kind of got the support of family so I can do a bit of work and have client calls and meetings and that kind of thing. And, you know, with my eldest being at school, I know that I've got, you know, 6 hours in the day to do
6 hours in which you were going to do 18 hours work.
Well, that's it. You know, it's just about chunking things down and prioritizing. And actually, the second one is actually quite a new addition. So it has been a bit of a, oh my God, you know, whereas before I just had the one, I knew I had, but now I've got 6 hours and a 4-month-old baby. So it's a whole new learning curve. But again, without the support of my family, it would be very, very difficult. So I think I'm doing it right.
You are, and I think it's really inspirational for your girls, you know, for children to see that their parents are working, they're doing something that they love, you know, that they're being professional, they're being committed, but not, you know, not to the detriment of having a family and looking after your family. You know, it is possible, but it is a juggle, and you know, you maybe can't take on the big projects that you'd love to take on because that's just not feasible. And again, it's about this thing of being a proper trained designer, I think, where if you want to do it all, you've got to do it organically and just let it grow slowly and bit by bit and bit by bit, so you can do everything that you want to do.
Absolutely, because I've no doubt that, you know, as the girls get bigger, I'll be able to take on sort of like bigger projects, longer projects, and hopefully by that time I'll be able to grow my studio, because that's always been something that I've wanted to do, is to have a couple of team members, because as much as I sort of love doing what I do, you know, and what I miss from like a design studio, let's say, where you've kind of got a team of 9, 10 or so people, is that kind of camaraderie and being able to ideas off each other and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing okay, and like I said, there's only room to grow. And
well, you're doing it, and that's enough, you know. And obviously you're doing it brilliantly, because the work that you're producing is just beautiful. So look, I'm on to my final question now. So it's been really, really interesting, really lovely talking to you, and I know that people are going to get a lot out of this when they're watching it. But my final question is, I'm just really curious to know, what would be your dream project?
Oh my God, my dream project.
Buckingham Palace.
No, that's a bit too big. Oh,
I love that. It's a bit too big.
Yeah, too big. But do you know what I do? Again, this sort of going back to kind of historic buildings. My dream project would be to do a sort of huge, maybe like a manor house, like a period property with lots of rooms, vast rooms, you know, high ceilings, period details, that kind of thing, and kind of, you know, like I said, stripping it back to the bare bones and kind of really, you know, designing something just fabulous and, you know, wow. And not necessarily a residential project either. It could be like, I don't know, let's call it a retreat for mums. What, little kids or
that's baths full of prosecco then.
exactly spa rooms, prosecco rooms.
Yeah.
Or, you know, as I said, maybe like a commercial workspace. In fact, there's a place that's opened up near me. I haven't visited it yet. And it's sort of like an old property which 5 creatives have come together have purchased it and have turned it into like a meeting space, a hotel, you know, a kind of hybrid of lots of different.
Nice. Yeah.
Something like that would be my dream property. And
Fantastic.
having a carte blanche with the brief would just be
brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very much. It's time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for your time and being so generous with your knowledge and your information and sharing your projects. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Take care.